just so despicable, isn't it? That the tiny percentage of those types of crimes now solved.
I mean, I think the police are in a real state, actually. That, you know, they seem to spend all their time worrying about thought crime and not worrying about actual crime.
Yep.
And
it's easier to solve, I guess.
Tied themselves in so many knots, but it's always low-hanging fruit with them. Yeah. It's the easiest stuff that's going to get the most traction and make them, you know, they're so terribly worried about their image. And the thing is, they do have a massive image problem. If you look at Sarah Everard, if you look at the policeman whose names I forget, who took pictures of those two poor girls who were killed, I mean, there are some really bad eggs rattling around in that basket. I'm not sure that's the right metaphor, but you know what I mean. So they're always trying to run. They're running to try and catch up with themselves, but they're not actually doing the job that they're asked to do. I mean, the other problem, of course, they have is that actually, if they do start arresting people, the criminal court system is so backed up and so constipated, and the judicial system in this country is so paralysed, and our prisons are all full. So, you know, there is a broader question here about, you know, general how we manage our criminal problem in this country, because we don't have enough space in jails and we don't have enough time in court to process people. But I do think that this idea that, you know, if you get your mobile phone stolen, it's not considered really to be a crime by the police because it's a disposable object, your insurance will pay for it, they don't want to... You know, they can't be bothered, it's not for them, it's not a thing. But things like antisocial behaviour and knife crime, which are really terrible, I mean, they're also very bad on that. They don't seem to be able to get a grip on that. And they seem to have completely lost the war against drugs. I mean, completely. Yeah. As far as I can tell.
I mean, Dominique, 3.7% of burglaries. I mean, let's just think for a moment. That means your home is invaded by complete strangers, and there is a 96% chance that the criminals are going to get off. And obviously that's why this industry is just growing.
I mean, yes, there is a crisis in policing at the moment, but when you actually look into some of the details of this, it's sort of not surprising. I mean, one statistic says that inexperienced officers are going to make up 40% of the UK police force by next year. Part of that is to do with the fact that the Conservative Party have had to actually regain some of the 20,000 officers that they got rid of, and much of those officers are inexperienced. But on the other hand, you've got a lot of these officers actually coming fresh out of university. They don't really know the realities of policing. They're scared to communicate with the public. One report even said that they had their parents calling in, demanding that they have their birthdays off. Seriously. We have a crisis.
Yeah, this is the woke world, isn't it? And the problem is, as Sarah says, because they have this image problem, that's why sometimes they think the solution is going woke.
But we don't want social workers in uniforms. No. We don't want thought police in uniforms. We want police officers that are actually interested in solving crime. And I think a lot of it is to do with the bureaucracy that, I'm sorry, the Conservative government has allowed to accumulate on their watch. It's on their watch that they've turned into thought police and social workers. How about have a look at the College of Policing and the undue influence that they seem to be having on policing, because that's where a lot of the woke nonsense is actually coming from.
However, the woke nonsense does have a position as well, because you need to ensure that you've got faith in the police, that you've got trust in the police. That's really important in communities.
Well, I'll have faith in the police and trust in the police if my home is burgled and they actually bother to come to my address.
Instead of investigating tweets.
But, OK, I want them to investigate tweets and also to come around your house. And unfortunately, there aren't the numbers available at the moment. There's not enough police and there's not enough funding.
Honestly, Amy, if they had to investigate tweets, I mean, I get multiple death threats a week. I mean, seriously.
I would love it if the police had enough time and energy to go to each of those. But they should, and that's why it's an issue of prioritisation and retention.
They shouldn't be prioritising tweets.
Of course they shouldn't. But at the moment, they're prioritising 999 calls over 101 calls. All the things you've talked about, burglary, theft, the smaller crimes, they would be considered 101 calls. But because they're so stretched, there aren't enough police on the ground and there isn't enough money.
So what are they calling for tweets and hate crime?
why that's not a priority. Each force obviously has different abilities, and if you look at a really well-funded, well-running police force, then they've probably got the time and the finances to be able to look into something like
in the police, though, Amy? Because you don't believe in prison, do you?
I don't believe in harsh law and order. We've got to throw everyone in prison and that will sort everything out. I don't think that at all. And I think probably the rise in crime comes from a loss of community. And if you had more sense of community, such things as like youth clubs, social services, that would...
Yes, youth clubs is going to solve it all.
I think youth clubs...
It's always the left's answer. We'll put some youth clubs up.
That's a really naive way to look at it, because, in fact, giving people purpose and having stuff to do within their community and a sense of respect and value for their community, of course, that starts at some roots.
But I think the government has sort of got it wrong on two fronts. On the one hand, you've gotten rid of obviously the Sure Start centres, the youth clubs, etc., etc. But then, on the other hand, in the actual prisons, you don't have enough prison staff to actually run the prisons. So the prisoners are literally having parties in there, taking pics, taking drugs, cooking steak. It's a party. No wonder a lot of them actually want to come back
there. And as Sarah says, the problem is because of the pandemic, the justice system is so bogged down as well. But the thing is, Sarah, this is Britain. We cannot get to the point where we accept that a burglary, an invasion of one's home, is no longer a priority crime. It is a priority crime, and it should be.
And it should be, and it should be. Of course, it should be attended. But like I said, they tend to focus on the low-hanging fruit, so they will.
That's not true. They focus on the 999 emergencies.
Well, I don't know. I mean.
Well, I'm sorry, we saw the police showing up to the house of an army veteran who'd retweeted a post by Lawrence Fox, and there were about six police officers.
That whole story was so blown out.
So much of what they do is to do with box ticking and filling in forms. I mean, the amount of
bureaucracy,
stupid paperwork that policemen have to do. Most policemen,
exactly, and then they want to leave as a result.
And most policemen are really good people, and it's a really difficult job, and they deserve to be properly paid, and they deserve to not have to do all this nonsense filling in of forms and stuff. They deserve to be properly supported,
and properly trained,
and they're not.
And properly trained. Maybe send the new ones that you've got that are from uni and don't know what they're doing. Maybe send them to a boot camp, some groups of them, and actually show them quickly what to do.
There's a brilliant channel. There's a brilliant Channel 4 series on at the moment about young cops in Brighton, and it follows the lives of 3 or 4 really young coppers, and it's really worth your listeners checking it out, because it really is an eye opener.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Night Coppers.
I'll look it up.
That's
Night Coppers.
Is it Night Coppers? That's it. Have you watched it?
No, I haven't.
Have you got a thing in your ear telling you? I was thinking about it.
But yeah, just one last thing I would say, though, just to reiterate, I think we should stop focusing on uni grads for police officers as well. I think that
let's get
people
that
have real life experience, because uni grads, they're...
It's a perfect job.
It's a perfect job.
It's a perfect job for somebody, for a young man or a young woman who's slightly gone off the rails, who really understands a bit, how
of how it
I
works.
think the fact is that austerity completely wiped out a massive amount of police officers, and we've never really come back from that. And every time we try to replace the officers that were sacked, they don't have the experience, so they're not. There's a massive shortage of senior officers, and I think that's
to get rid of those police officers.